Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Madisonville Marine. Great deals right now on Yamaha motors until June 15th. Up to $1,750 back on select models of G3 and Suncatcher pontoons through June 15th. Discounts of up to $5,000 on select models of Godfrey pontoons, up to $2,000 on select models of Hurricane deck boats, and more. I don't have enough time in this show to tell you all the specials going on right now at Madisonville Marine. Madmarine.com is where you need to go. Try not to pronounce it as Madisonville Marine. Madisonville Marine, great. No better place to buy a boat. And let me tell you, no better time to buy a boat either. Madisonville Marine. All right. We continue to compare these Vols to the last 8 SEC East champions. And, you know, we could talk yardage. We could talk about all kinds of statistics. Bottom line is points. Where are you in relation to the opponents you're playing? Let's take a look and see where Tennessee stands and what they need to make up this year. All right, let me break this down for you. Again, this is SEC versus SEC only. I'm not counting the non-Power 5 games that could skew it. The last 8 years, the SEC East champion has averaged about 28 points per game. Median 28. Okay, so 28. Scoring defense, they've allowed on average about 18 or 19 points a game. The scoring difference on average, about plus 10, plus 11, plus 12. Somewhere they're 10 to 12 points better in SEC games. Tennessee last year averaged 20 points against SEC, so about 8 down, 8 or 9. Scoring defense, they gave up 23.3, so they need to be about 4 or 5 points better there. Scoring defensive average, I mean, their difference, minus 3 in SEC games, so they lost on average. Just look at the difference in the scoring difference, the margin. The average SEC East team wins by a 10 to 12 point range. You were minus 3 last year. You basically need to be 2 touchdowns better in SEC games this year. To me, that is the biggest jump that we will see. Now, we're talking about numbers, so this is ballpark stuff, but just a way to talk about this roster. But when you look at this roster and you look at the schedule ahead, the SEC schedule, is this team capable, Josh, of being 2 touchdowns per game better?
No, I don't think so. You think about the step that Tennessee took last year, which was an important one, beating Missouri, beating Kentucky. South Carolina, they pulled away late, but that Missouri game was close. Kentucky game was close, could have gone the other way. To get that kind of difference, you're probably going to have to thump those teams, right? Because you're not thumping Georgia and Florida. That's not realistic, and you're going to need to try to beat those teams as well. So to make that kind of leap, no, I would start the process, though, in the red zone offensively. You need to be a lot better there. If you do, your offense can start taking the kind of steps you need to get closer to where you need to be as a program, big picture.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is, you look at a championship team, when they play the teams in the bottom half of the league, they might have one scare, but usually they're just flexing on all those teams constantly. And you play the teams from the top half, some of the elite teams, half of those games you might win by double digits, and the other half you might lose one, you might need to pull one out late. Tennessee's not there yet. How many teams in the SEC did they beat convincingly last year? Like pretty much just Vandy, maybe Mizzou in some ways, sort of, but pretty much just Vandy, right? Am I forgetting anyone?
I mean, South Carolina, they pulled away, but they also trailed.
And you had, 2 special teams touchdowns in that game.
Right.
So you don't get those very often. So, I mean, that's kind of where you're at, where you need to dominate those teams. They can beat those teams, and that's a step, but you got to dominate those teams, and then you have to go in and, when you play the elite teams, hang with them. They hung, but they were not anywhere close to being the better team in those games.
Right. You can't afford, I mean, it's not only thump the little guys, but you've got to stop being thumped by the bigger guys.
Right.
I mean, you can't have, if you want to be 2 touchdowns better, you can't have 20-point losses to anybody anymore.
Yeah, because in the middle of the season last year, we were still talking after the Florida and Georgia games about how many games Tennessee had lost by 25 or 26 points or more. Yep. So you have to go from there to trying to beat those teams.
And I still wonder where you would have been if Tua doesn't get hurt at Alabama, because that wouldn't look like it was going to be another beatdown until he went out, and then you rallied. Their offense, they kind of put the brakes on it. So you could have had another blowout in there. So, yeah, you've got ground to make up, not only with the big guys, but your point about finally snuffing out the little guys, that's when you're going to know Tennessee is back. It's when you're not just fist fighting every single week with everyone you play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tennessee has returned to, I think, being viewed as the better team than those others. And beating those teams last year did that for Tennessee. Now you have to be looked at as a team that's much better. Like Tennessee and Kentucky, I think, are still viewed largely as pretty comparable teams. Tennessee has a slight advantage. You need to be much better.
Mm-hmm. And I think they're getting there. They're certainly going in the right direction.
Without question.
But how close are you to there? If you're, I think you're at least got the car pointing in the right location. Your GPS is saying, yes, we're headed over there. Whereas before you were driving straight into the Tennessee River. At least you're heading in the right direction. But how many miles are you from it? We'll be having a discussion at the end of this year. They'll probably tell us a lot more about where they are. All right, let's update the recruiting landscape next. Interesting stuff on social media this week. Also, Tennessee had been looking at a 5-star transfer from USC. He picked Georgia. How big of a hit is that? Is it at all? We'll discuss. Come on back on the Sports Source.